Should we recap a little bit for those listening online? Okay. We had a little technical difficulty, mics weren't on, but all that has taken place so far is roll call with all members of the board present, and the meeting minutes from the 1/8 meeting were approved unanimously. We then moved into public comment. So at this point, if anyone is online and wishes to ask a question or make a comment about any topic, now is the time in the meeting to do that. Otherwise, it will be at the next meeting. So do we have anyone online that wishes to post? Post a comment or? Okay. All right. If no additional comments are desired, then we'll move on to staff reports.
Thank you, Ryan. Good evening, Park Board. We definitely started the year off with a bang and had a very great kickoff to the 2025 year. We sent 2 of our employees, our senior team lead in the maintenance department, as well as our events coordinator, to West Virginia to attend the NRPA maintenance management schools, as well as the special events management schools. Each of those are put on by the National Recreation and Park Association. It's a great opportunity to learn best practices for each of those disciplines, network, as well as come back with new ideas to invigorate our local operations. So looking forward to recapping with them and implementing some of the things they learned at the NRPA schools. Speaking of maintenance, our team responded to our first winter storm of the season, plowing all priorities within our park system and keeping our ordinance-bound pathways clear so pedestrians can still get out in the winter months. We hosted our 4th annual puzzle swap this year with 216 participants that swapped 1,536 puzzles this year. So each January we pack town hall with puzzle enthusiasts that trade in their own for new ones, and it just seems to grow every single year. So Zionsville loves their puzzles. 2 more items of note. The Hoop House at Heritage Trail Park, which was approved last year by this board, is moving through the planning and permitting departments currently and will be on the March 17th Plan Commission agenda for development plan approval. After that, we should have the green light to move forward and actually get our Hoop House up at Heritage Trail Park. And finally, we've had pre-construction meetings for both the Turkey Foot Pedestrian Bridge Rehab Project and the Mulberry Fields Concession Stand. So that is all from the superintendent report, unless there are any questions.
Do you have any questions for Jared?
So just a comment. You sent out a recording of a user on the trail. So kudos to you and your team for getting that cleared off based on that storm. It sounds like it was a good run for those members of the community to go out and take advantage of that.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, I think that was a great example. I mean, I know that was no short order to get those cleared, but unlike what we typically experience, the snow hung around for quite a while. Yeah. So I feel like I would have been pretty bummed if we didn't have trail access. So appreciate everyone doing that.
Jared, are you going to join them for their Boston Marathon training next year or no?
You know, we do have one employee that's going to be at Chicago this year, and she's working towards Boston. So We'll keep her non-naturalist Rachel. Thank you.
All right. With that, Director of Recreation Services, Mindy Murdoch, come on down.
All right, good evening, everybody. All right, so as Jared had said, we're hitting the ground running here in 2025. So January, we saw 1,444 walk-ins at the Zionsville Nature Center. Just a few things to highlight that happened throughout the month of January. We are into our 2nd round for Nature Connections programming. So in January, we saw Pleasant View Elementary. This month of February, we're seeing Eagle and Trailside. Another kind of highlight showing that Zionsville does love their luminary walks. January, we had our Illuminate the Night We had a luminary walk at Overly Warman. It was freezing cold that night because I was out there, and I will tell you. But part of that, we actually were in the library during their international fair, and we allowed community members to go ahead and decorate luminaries that we had as a part of that walk. So it was kind of a fun thing. A lot of the families that came out actually had decorated, and then they braved the cold to see their luminary lit up that evening. So we also had our first ever Java Trail, another very cold night, but we had 63 people come down to the bricks and grab themselves a coffee mug and kind of explore the town after hours. Got some good feedback from the businesses, so we hope to expand that again for Winterfest next year. And Jared already talked about the Zionsville puzzle swap, so we are now getting to the point where we're kind of running out of room for puzzles. So we'll have to think about what do we do next, because we've been almost doubling every year. We started with around a little over 300. Now we're over 1,500 puzzles that get dropped off. So we are running out of space for puzzles. And then a few other things going on. We are wrapping up Winterfest in February. We just did our Frozen Fete beginning of February itself. And then this weekend is our Fireside Nights with the Igloos, which is sold out. And then the Valentine Luminary Walk, if you're looking for something to do, Friday night. We'll be at Creekside Nature Park. We did release all of our summer camp programming. That newsletter just went out to all of those that are signed up for our emails today. And then in front of you guys is the activity guide for spring. I guess you get bonus points if you find the 2 errors that I noticed. But that will also be released here probably over the weekend. We're waiting on one particular thing, and that has to do with our first ever native plant sale. So once I get those details and get that wrapped up, then I will release all of that out to the public. So that is all I have, unless you guys have any questions for me.
Does anyone have any questions?
Now they're
or-
all looking for the errors. Jared didn't find them either until I pointed them out, so.
Well, we'll just, that can be a task for the coming days.
There you go.
I love the concept of the Java Walk being in the village and being there even after hours. I think the winter months can be harder on the local businesses, and the more I think the Parks Department can incorporate the village businesses and try to, I'd like to think people stayed after for dinner or whatever it is to support those local businesses, more opportunities we can find that. I think that's wonderful for the community. So thank you, Mindy.
Thank you.
I just have a quick question about
Yes.
the native plant sale. Where did the plants come from?
The plants are coming from Indie Urban Acres.
Is that a donation? And then we're
No.
selling, or we're purchasing
We
some
are
and then-
purchasing, yes, so.
Okay.
But
Is it as like a fundraiser or just?
it will be a fundraiser for our restoration projects here in the Parks Department. Yep,
And it's also a fundraiser for Indie Urban Acres.
yes.
Which is a great program if you're not familiar. It's a 7-acre fully organic farm and like right off I-70, just close to downtown.
Okay.
But they have great plants. I've bought quite a few over the years. They've done really, really well. They're well cared for. So I'd encourage all of you, if you need any landscape plants, either get them from Mindy. And
But
if
yes,
you-
come to the plant sale.
Let's go here first.
And then any left, then you can go into your
Yes,
bank.
there you go.
Great, sounds great.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you, Mindy. Moving on, Parks Board Attorney, any new business or,
Nope, no updates here.
okay, no updates. All right, so we will move on to new business. First item is the Zionsville Golf Course proposed fee schedule for 2025.
And to speak more to that and introduce the following season, we have representatives from Zionsville National.
Good evening. My name is Paul Kite. Office is at 95 East Oak Street. With me is Pete Proust. We're the managers of Zionsville National and managing the course for the town. We are looking to follow up on a request to raise fees for the course that would, some of which are in excess of the CPI provision that's shown in the lease. And the reason is that we're trying to change the way the course is operated and make it more of a public course and less of a course where it's used by a few individuals and will tend to fill up a lot of blocks of time. And oftentimes we have people that don't play regularly but would like to play where there's not any tee times available, and we're just trying to smooth it out and make it more available for everyone. And as a result, if we can, you want to go over I think before we do so, I think give you guys an update about what we've been doing over the winter and some of the both business and improvements that have been made. And I think you have a sheet we've handed out. Probably the most important thing is that we've made an agreement with the Zionsville schools to provide them golf for free. So there's no payment involved, and their tournament and the practices and their matches, there's no charge. So we've worked out a deal where essentially it's a contribution, and that's in place, and we're looking forward to improving that relationship with Zionsville schools. We're also in the midst of erecting a two-bay driving net behind the clubhouse so people can come out and practice and hit balls before they start a round. That's been one of the biggest complaints, and that'll be in place by the start of the season. We've put new seating outside the clubhouse with the 6, I never pronounce this right, Adirondack chairs. And we've paved around the clubhouse where it was dirt to make it less muddy and a better environment, looks cleaner. We're also resealing and restriping the parking lot. We've moved the fuel tanks away from the current location where we can't keep an eye on them, and we fenced them in. We're putting them on a trailer, so if there's ever any flooding or anything, that we can remove them and get them off the course, which I think is much safer. Brand new tanks that are double walled, and we think that'll be the safest way to manage the fuel for the golf carts. We've cleared all the honeysuckle and dead trees on the 6th tee and made a really nice vista, and we think it's going to make the play the course is going to look very good from that perspective. That's also where we're doing the work to build a rest area and bathrooms at the top of the hill, and a concession area. So that'll be a good thing for everyone. New signposts on all the holes. We've reorganized the shop, which was quite a mess. So we've reorganized all that and fixed holes and resurfaced the parking lot. Striped it, mentioned that before. Removed stumps around the course. Put up a rope fence between 3 and 4 to protect the grass and people driving on that area, which has been a problem in the past. And we've purchased a work truck to allow us to be more efficient on the way we manage the course. And you have some photos there and all that.
In the past, we always used the town's vehicle when it was available, which was never all the time, but Jared was pretty good about getting us a truck when we needed it, so we did need to get something to pull reels around, equipment, things like that, so.
And then if to kind of recap, do these guys have this? Do they have that, these wrap downs? Yeah, okay. Great. So I think it was mentioned earlier that we're showing fewer rounds played, and how can we be making the course available to more people with they said players, but actually these are rounds that are represented. So in 24, there were 27,000 rounds, 27,547. We're projecting 25,000 rounds. And the difference there is that rounds aren't necessarily players. There's several players, especially season pass holders, who will play 100, 150 rounds a year. So that process and the way that it's been operated, where a lot of players are reserving a foursome and one or two show up, and then that's two members of the public that aren't available to play golf, unless they just happen to be standing there, waiting for a round. So that's one of our biggest issues.
And we were averaging 60 to 80 no-shows a week. The majority of those people who make a tee time for 4 show up as 1 or 2. So that was a
Yeah.
big.
Sometimes people would make 2 foursomes and just show up for the second one, so there's no one in front of them. And that's our fault for not enforcing that and changing that. And we feel like what we're doing by asking not to have season passes, but to just offer discount cards, is a better way for us to track it. And we have notes in here where some players and season pass holders would play 9 holes and just jump right back in between two foursomes that were reserved, and just jump right back in without even consulting the clubhouse. And this happens all the time. So it's unfortunate that a very few number of people have made the season pass system untenable for us to make the course what it needs to be for the public. And that's the long and the short of it, is to make more availability, to keep it, we're asking for $1. We're still the cheapest course in central Indiana. So we don't feel like we're asking too much, and hopefully as the next year or two go by, everyone realizes that we're doing this because it's the right thing.
And the number next to the greens fees dollar amount, that's the average per round. And you can see for 24 at $10.92, our cheapest greens fee was $12. So what that means is a lot of those rounds are people going round and round and round.
Yeah.
And so that's, it, and I think everybody has, we found, actually Charlie found when he was doing the cleaning the shop and building the new benches in there, there was a little piece of paper in there from 2008 when the town acquired the course. And in there it says that we are going to keep the fees at $10 next year. That was in 2008. So what we're offering this year is, with the 10 and 20 round passes for a junior and senior, they can play for $11.70. And that's, $1.70 over 17 years. CPI has gone up close to 50% in that amount of time. So we are the wealthiest town in the state of Indiana, and we've got the cheapest golf in the state of Indiana. And we've been tasked by the mayor, yourselves, to do these things: concessions, clubhouse, drainage, shop, keep up with equipment. In the 6 years that I've been there, labor has doubled. Chemicals have probably doubled in the last 6 years. And we're asking for another $1.70. So I don't think it's an unfair thing to ask for. As an example, you'd have to pay $3.30 more to go play at Hickory Bend. And I don't know how many golfers we have here. I don't think many, but we pride ourselves in what we've done over the last 6 years to say that, our course looks a little better than Hickory Bend does. So, and I know that's subjective, but that's what we believe. And we hear it from a lot of people as well.
So anyway, we're chattering on.
Yeah.
Happy to answer questions and have a dialogue on it.
Is there any discussion of, I think the dollar increase seems pretty reasonable, but we're getting rid of the season passes. Were there any discussions of maybe charging those people that don't show up like even if they're season pass holders, charging them for the full price of a round, or finding a way to try to, like you said, if it's a minority of people
Yeah.
spoiling the bunch, is there a way?
We talked about doing that, and there will be some penalty going forward for if you were to reserve a foursome and only one person showed up. We started taking credit cards with the reservations for the first time at the end of the season, so we're trying to set that up, and there will be some penalty going forward for doing that. Another issue with the season pass holders is that, especially when they're trying to jump in the middle of the foursomes, it just means that we have to have more labor out there to act as a policeman to keep that in. And by having everybody on the same system, where you get a reservation, you check in, if you've got a card, get your card punched or whatever it is to do that, that the discount and being at, what was it, $10.90 with the discount? That,
No, 1170.
1170 with the discount, that would be easier to keep track of as opposed to someone who can play for free, not free, I mean, obviously they're paying up front, but who can just keep playing and reserving rounds. It's fine, here's your, you can play very cheaply, but you got to check in like everybody else. Everybody would be on the same system.
And an example, like this is, from what the golf course manager last year wrote up, and there's a number of these in there, and this is a season pass holder, will play additional holes even if you ask them not to or check in first. I mean, that's what we get.
Yeah, and it's not, it's a handful of people, but it requires essentially another person to manage those people, and a lot of times they won't even listen to you.
Devil's advocate, would the people, even with a pass, just continue to do that?
Yes,
even with
yes,
a
yes.
Well, those people all have to check in.
Yeah.
And I think the problem now is the people that are used to years ago where it was, a club that was used by very few, they liked it that way. And things have changed, and that's where a lot of the problems are.
It's a change in culture. Public course versus a semi-public course.
How many season pass holders do you have right now?
From last year, from 2024?
Yeah.
I think we had 70-ish.
Do you know how many were students?
There was a good number of them were students. And the thing with the students is most of those students did not use the amount of golf, they weren't out as often as they could have been if it was a $400 or $500 fee. Some took advantage of it, and so we feel that we can, with a 20-round pass and $11.70, we can accommodate those kids and really give them a fair price, $1.70 over what it was 17 years ago, when a lot of our prices have doubled.
So you're saying that they'll pay less
A lot of them will.
Yeah.
because
Because
they're
they
not
didn't play
utilizing
that
the
much.
they're not utilizing enough.
Right. And same thing with a lot of the seniors. We've considered maybe, if we look at somewhere like GCI, which isn't a great comparison because they have, they have restaurant, thing like that. But, I think their senior rate is $1,700. And they can't play on the weekends. They can play if they play afternoon, and it's either $10 or $20 on top of their regular pass. So but if we were to do that, there's only a handful of people that fit into that category that would play that much golf.
How many people would be, of those 70 people, how many of them were playing, where they're in there playing 100 rounds or 50 rounds even? Half?
20 of them. Some as much as 150 and more. Would come out, just jump in wherever they want.
Yeah. So 20 people playing 100 rounds is 2,000 rounds.
How many rounds go through course in one day. I don't have a feel for that.
We have, there's 5 tee times an hour. We, unlike other golf courses, have a 12-minute span on our tee times. You know, out at GCI, they have 8-minute times, so it's gonna be a lot more uncomfortable playing. And we go from, depending on the time of year, from 7 in the morning till, you know, depending on fall, spring, where it's a little bit shorter. In the longest time, our last tee time will be 6:36 last year. So from 7 to 6:36, so 12 times, almost, what, 12 times 5? So 60.
And to emphasize the point about the 12-minute tee times, it allows golfers that aren't great golfers or slow, and without irritating the group behind them, it gives them more space so they're not rushed and they can take their time, and just makes it a better experience for everyone. And the newer golfers don't feel as pressured as they would at a course that had 8-minute tee times.
And for our leagues, a lot of our leagues, you know, Jerry Arthur, who is a great guy, he spoke last week or last month about the prices, and I saw Jerry Friday at the Friendly, and he said, I said, Jerry, how are you? And he said, oh, hi. And I said, you complained about the prices the other day. I said, do you know that you played 19 times last year, and this coming year, you're gonna save $70? And he looked at me and he goes, really? Oh, that's all I said.
So it's, I mean, the bottom line is, this is going to make a course that is more available to more of the public, and it's going to be a great course, and we're trying to make it work where we can generate enough revenue that we can reinvest it as we've agreed to, and we're just going to continue making it a good experience. And I'm sorry that inconveniences a minority of the golfers that are out there, but that's not our focus. Our focus is the majority of the town.
So just for my math, tell me if this sounds right. So about 40 rounds is your break-even point from last year to this year.
If you do are you saying if you do the
Well, if you get
pass
a
versus
10%
the
discount
cards, yeah.
times unlimited based on the
40
prices last year.
Yeah.
And the price was,
I was thinking it's closer to 50, but you might be right. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
and to try to compare it to last year, that there's nowhere you could go for $450 for the discount or $500 and get a season pass to play golf in the state of Indiana. You can't. I mean, for the guys that did it, congratulations. You guys, I mean, we offered it and they took advantage of it. That's fantastic. But we can't continue to do that. I had one of the guys who did play an awful lot of golf, over 100 times, and I saw him out on the course walking his dog a couple weeks ago, and he said, Pete, he goes, I don't disagree with what you're doing. He goes, the last couple of years, I should have been wearing a mask and carrying a gun because I was stealing. And there's, you know, a couple of leaders of the leagues who have said, Pete, I know what you're doing, you have to do it. You know, to be able to maintain and do the things that the town has tasked you to do. So we understand it's going to make a couple people unhappy, but boy, we're trying for the greater good.
A question, so we're really, I feel like most of us seem, or the conversation has made it seem, I don't put words in anybody's mouth, that the per round fee increase, it seems reasonably nominal to most folks. I think a lot of the discussion is on the season passes, right? And you're articulating that part of the challenge you have is course availability in the current structure.
Correct.
What is the current season or prior season pass rate? Was that $450 or $490?
If you did it in advance or early, and $500 regular.
Okay, so $500. And you listed in, you know, I don't know if the prices you pulled for the other sort of benchmark or peer courses, Hickory Bend, Ironwood, not other 9-hole rounds, those were 2025 rates or 2024 rates?
The ones that I looked up just
Sure.
recently, they should have been 25s.
And all of those are notably more, for the most part, than what we charge. But what's interesting is if you go to any of those courses and look at their annual pass rates, there's not a single one that has a pass rate below $1,000. So
About 15.
well, Ironwood's $24.95, and these are for single adult full season passes. South Grove, which is a Indianapolis Indy Parks course, $1,200 annually. Hickory Stick, $1,399. So we're charging $495 or $500 or maybe a little bit less for the same benefit, and it's causing a problem with course availability. So
People over the last 2 or 3 years that I've seen, whether it be in the gym, Kroger, out on the golf course, because I'm out there all the time. I'm talking to people. This is the reason I do it. I love interacting with the people, and I see them and I say, where have you been? You know, are you cheating on us? They said, no, we can't get a GD tee time. And it's true.
So did you do, and just again, to play devil's advocate, did you do any sort of comparison on what would happen to your metrics if you adjusted the annual pass rate to be more reflective of the current market?
What we wanted to do was clean up the situation, and you know, I've said before that next year, the year after, we may revisit the season passes, because it's, you know, if it's something that people want and we can do it at a price that's fair, then it's something we could revisit. But at this point, I think a lot of it is.
We're trying not to make we're trying to make focus changes, see if they work, see if we can get the rounds that we're looking to get by making more availability.
Sure.
And being more assertive about people taking advantage of the course.
A follow-up, you listed in your 24 recaps revenues of $550,000 or so for 2024. Do you have a ballpark number of what your total operating budget was for 2024?
I think by the end of 24, we had about $80,000 in the bank, and so that'd give you a rough idea. And
So you're 80,000 in the black?
yes, and
Not anymore.
not anymore. We bought a truck.
Well,
So yeah, we bought a truck.
Improve a golf course,
And
yeah.
all of that will go into the capital improvements we need to make in
Right.
2025. So that, I mean, that's how close
Yeah.
you play this thing, and that's fine. And we know that's the case, and that's just the nature of the business. But it's you know, it's sort of a, for me, it's a desire to keep this kind of jewel in the town the way it is and make it better. And Pete's just loves to cut grass, so that's the
I'm in the clubhouse now. so
yeah.
Yeah, I think, again, I think we probably need to discuss, but a lot of times when we work with municipalities that have golf courses, an important thing is sort of defining what your market is, right? Who are you trying to compete with? And, you know, I don't think that anyone pretends that we're, as a community course, are out there trying to compete with, you know, a Pete Dye course or something like that. It's a different experience,
My
right?
favorite thing to see is you know, a family out there with young
Right.
kids that are just getting started. And
Yeah.
that's what's made. I mean, look at how great Zionsville Schools golf is, and I think we have a little bit to do with that, and we
Yeah,
want to.
well, I think that's the role of a municipal, in my opinion, a taxpayer subsidized course should be to get people interested in the game, expose the game to as many new people as possible, be as affordable as possible while still playable. But at the same time, that's the role of a municipal course. And I think that if, this is my opinion solely, but I think we should take whatever effort we need to ensure that anyone who wants to play, that is paying tax dollars that subsidize this course, have an equal opportunity to play at a reasonable rate. So if course availability is a challenge, then we need to have a solution that addresses it.
And just so you know, we don't want to be anything more than what we are.
Right.
We, you know, like Paul said, we take pride in the girls and boys high school teams won the state championship, and all of them started at Zionsville Golf Course, and we take a lot of pride in that.
But we got to run it like a business.
Right. Well, you have to. I mean, how many acres is the course?
62.
62 acres. So average golfer takes up, what, quarter acre, half acre of space at a time? You know, that's,
How good you are.
yeah, so that's what, three or four basketball courts per person of space, right? So I think that just because that's the nature of the game, and it's a fairly expensive operation to run, any municipality that has a golf course is obligated to make it operate, you know, at a profitable or at a minimum, a cost recovery model. And, you know, I think I appreciate what the town has done in the past to do that, and I understand why you're trying to do that now.
Hey, Ryan, I got a couple questions. So there's been a lot of emotion kind of around the topic, and just questions. And I think just for the sake of role clarity, because the agreement between it's between the Zionsville National and the town of Zionsville, right? Like that's the agreement. And the Parks Board has certain jurisdictions, certain not. So we've received some questions from the community. I just think for the matter of public forum, Jeremy, I'm probably going to call on you just for the sake of just, is this in scope for us or is this not in scope for us, right? So what I would say, there's a couple things that have come up, just kind of question, just want to put those to bed, just to say, is this our responsibility or is it not, right? So we talked about the challenge with no-shows and a no-show policy, right? Inside of the operating agreement, is it up to the Zionsville National Management Company or is it up to the Parks Board to determine a no-show policy like that? My interpretation of the agreement, it's up to the management company to determine that type of policy. Is that your?
That's correct. For
Okay.
a policy like that,
Yeah.
drilled down,
Yeah.
like that fine grain, that's not contemplated in the operating agreement. The overall rate structure is, and you're correct, the operating, it's a bit of an interesting setup. The operating agreement is with the town because they own the property, but the park board does have certain duties under the agreement,
Yeah.
which is exactly what you said, essentially like a rate review board almost.
Yeah.
So if they're trying to raise any sort of rates over the 3% CPI, then they have to ask your permission.
What about the elimination of season passes? Is that up to us to determine?
I think that would fall under, because, so fees are defined as the season passes plus greens fees in general. So I think that if there's going to be a change like that, I think the park board would need to approve it.
Okay. And then transactions, you know, one thing I'm really happy to hear is middle schools and junior camps playing for free, and just totally agree with wanting this to be accessible to the youth within that. So thank you for doing that. In terms of that transaction and how that goes down, is that inside of the Zionsville Parks Board to analyze that transaction, or that's really between the management company and whatever entity it is and their management of their P&L?
I think as long as the fee paid isn't over that threshold, then I don't think we need to examine it.
All right.
One more quick question. So one of the things that we talked about is maybe bringing back a season pass in a couple of years, or reevaluating that. Would that be a way to get around this CPI issue that we're talking about?
Well, I mean, if we eliminated the season pass and went back to the other, I mean, I think, so that's an imposition of a new fee, I think, at that point. So I think that that's something the park board would approve at that time too. That's how I would read that.
So to my point earlier about just raising the rates of the annual passes, you know, substantially to be in alignment with the market, we actually couldn't do that. Well, I guess the park board could approve that if we
Yeah,
choose.
as
Okay,
long
but
as you
they
approve
can't
it.
do, they just
Correct.
can't do that. Okay,
Yeah.
got it, okay.
I have a couple of questions for Paul and Pete. You talked about 60 to 80 no-shows, and I thought I heard you say per week? And how many of those no-shows were season pass holders?
The majority.
Can you give me better than 50, 60?
40 to 50.
Okay. I mean, I've experienced that myself, right? I mean, I go to try to walk on, and the only reason I can get on is because two people didn't show up on a foursome, so thank good I got there at the right time. The middle school is that a fixed schedule when they're using the facility, or is that kind of random? How are you managing that?
We work very closely with the schools. They give us their schedule, we allot time. It's different in the spring and the fall, and different depending on, you know, maybe
matches.
For matches, so we have to then allot for that. But we know, and we work closely with them, and that I think is gonna be a much better relationship. We talked to them about, just trying to tighten it up a little bit, and they were all for it. So
Has that been a scheduling challenge then for you, and you're getting better handle on it? Through better.
it has, yes.
I think the issue is we were having to block out too big a block, where if we communicate better, know how many players are going to show up, they can less amount of time that we can't book.
Okay. I see that you have a military and veteran pass broken out at $500 under your 24 rates. How many veterans and military members participated?
2, I think.
2? Okay,
We
thanks.
also have this year I've gotten with the police and fire, and we've got 3 matches, spring, summer, and fall, with the police against the fire, and they're already talking smack between themselves. So we really look forward to having all of them out, and that will be, they won't pay when they come out. That'll be something that we can, a way too, we can give back to the town and get the people involved.
And I don't know if this is the place, but it's only my second meeting, and I don't know much about the concession stand and the restrooms that are going out on 6. But I had a couple of questions. I don't know if now's the time, or if we could talk.
I mean, we have the right folks in the room.
So is there any data that supports the investment for a concession stand to go out on 6? What was the deciding factor to make that decision
The
to make
biggest
those
issue is we don't
investments?
there's no handicap access for bathrooms.
So
that's really kind of like the most important thing.
Yeah.
To have that on the course, that people that have a hard time going upstairs, and we have this teeny little bathroom, and, they have mobility problems or whatever, but
I'm
I'm
in
a
agreement with
future
the
mobility problem
restrooms.
guy, so
Yeah.
it's just,
And we've had a really hard time with that. We, for years, have been, you can't, our water's not safe to drink. The bathrooms are not ADA. We've got a line in the carpet where it backs up all the time, and it's just something that we need to get something. And the idea about the concession stand was too, we'd like to involve more of the town. If, with the Pittmans back there and the driveway being an easement, we're gonna work with the town to switch the easement, have a path to come in, give the Pittmans their driveway back, golf course, private drive. People can walk in from downtown. We're going to have the same things we have at the clubhouse, craft beer, wine. People can come out. We're gonna have a little TV out there and under an area that, and you may have seen the picture or not of what we had showed a couple months ago. But have people come in and watch the golf, be a part of it. And if you're out with your buddies or girlfriends and you just want to go have a drink and sit outside with the hill cleared, we're going to have a fountain in the pond. You're going to look down over the pond on 7, be able to see golf on 5, 6, 7, and 8. And the vision is to have people in the town get involved as well. Will it be a big revenue generator? No, but it's a way to give back to the town and involve the town in a way that maybe people haven't thought of before.
That sounds nice. I haven't heard much about it. I'm just more concerned about the revenue versus the expense side of it, right? So sounds like there hasn't been any pro formas done on what and you're anticipated for revenues yet? Or is it just kind of a build it and they will come?
Well, I guess to help answer that question, did you, when you're building a building, which you're going to have to do for restrooms, you're going to absorb a significant bulk of that cost in building the structure. Do you have a sense of what the delta would be?
$250,000 that'll be spent somewhere around there on the facility, and 60 or 70 of it will just be to make handicap restrooms available.
And we have to hook up the sewer and water, which are
Right,
in the road.
But to try to do that at the clubhouses, it'll be at least $1.5 million to get that facility built out of the floodplain, and it'll be 1.5 to 2 years worth of work with
Right.
DNR to get that done.
Right. That's the other notable point, is you have elevation in your
It's a
favor. Yeah.
big challenge.
I'm sorry,
And this-
Doug, I didn't want to
this-
interrupt, but I,
This mitigates the fact that it's going to be very difficult and take us a number of years to be able to
Right.
be in that position to do it.
Thank you.
and to be clear, that was an item we approved in 2024, that budget allocation, and that is currently in the budget for 2025. Is that correct, Jared?
That is correct. At the October 2024 meeting, the board approved $100,000, which we built into the 2025 golf course fund to be allocated. I'll take this moment just to clarify, in these 2025 projections, it looks like the golf course will take 2 years, or the concession stand will take 2 seasons to complete, and I just want to verify that the capital improvement 50% match is that 100,000 and not 175, which would be 50% of.
What we were hoping to do, just based on our revenue, is to be able to do 75 or 150 in 25, and then the remainder in 26. Because even though the money is sitting in the 680 fund, which I don't think it's called the 680 fund anymore, but we won't have the revenue to do all of the work in 25.
I think it spotlights a really important conversation, and it really goes hand in hand with the impact fee conversation we're going to have, and like a tick and tie to the impact fee to the long-term capital planning. I think that it would be helpful to understand kind of over the next 5 years what you see as priorities, and then we get alignment here as what we see as priorities too, so that we can tick and tie what we would expect to come into that previously named 680 fund. I don't know, Jared, if we're going to have a better name for that fund, just the golf course fund, so that we all, and this is all for the sake of transparency to the public. These are public funds, and that we just put our cards on the table, like this is what we see as priority for the golf course, and that we're in alignment with it. I think the piece to kind of go back history-wise, what caught our attention was the lack of ADA compliance for the bathrooms, and just, I mean, as you're up there on 6. Other than having a swing thought of like, can I actually hit the green on that? You look behind you and you see like this is a completely deteriorated building that has an outhouse behind it with a 1993 Pepsi machine, right? And so I think when we had that conversation, it's something we need to do just to update the facility. So I think you asked really good questions, good justifiable questions. But I think it would be helpful if we work together to lay out a 5-year plan, just like we're getting ready to do with the impact fees too.
Our plan is concession, clubhouse, drainage, shop,
Yep.
all capital improvements.
Well, I think as we think about these things too, and have dialogue about that plan, I think most of us or for some of us that have been on the board longer than a year, there's been multiple requests over the years for additional capital improvements needed just to keep the golf course operational from a drainage standpoint and things like that. It's not a cheap operation to run. Even we do it well, but even in our sort of lane, it's still not cheap, right? So if it is benefiting a select few people, comparable to the whole population of the town in comparison to all the other needs we have in our park system, which the golf course is one of them, but many, many others. I think anyone who operates that, whether it would be us or you all, have an obligation to try to raise as much revenue as humanly possible so that can be reinvested in the course. So revenues raised from food and beverage, I think I would imagine would go up with this new facility. Do those funds then get reinvested in the course or in operating costs of the course?
Everything that we make gets put back in the course. As an example, this year, instead of having 14 people employed in the clubhouse, we're going to have 5. So we're trying to do everything we can to be smarter, better at what we do, because we know we want to offer fees at $11, $12 a round. That's hard to do, and have the agenda that we do with concession, clubhouse, drainage, shop. Those are hundreds of thousands of dollar jobs, each one of them. And everything we make goes back into, Paul doesn't make a dime. I don't make much. We're doing this to give back to the town to make this what it can be. Because it's such a jewel for this town. And it's never been, it's always been a semi-private club.
Always notably still taxpayer subsidized, right? Just for the record.
I think if we get back to the season pass conversation, I mean, I would agree with Doug. I have the similar experience that you want to get on the course and you can't, right? And so I would love to see that improve, because it's a very rare instance that I can get out and play 9 holes of golf. And when I haven't been able to get on. So I agree with Doug on that. I do think there is a reality, and I think just being transparent with the folks that are in the audience and to provided feedback, at $450 for unlimited pass is incredibly, incredibly low. That is a steal. It's been a steal for a long, long time. And that is a piece, like when I even look at just our neighbors to the west, like Brookshire, it's $23.50 for a senior discounted pass with that. So even if there was a contemplation of a senior season pass, you're probably looking 3, 4, 5x what you're paying right now for a season pass. And I think that's the pieces I've listened to the community, and I've heard feedback. It's the season pass going away. I do think there's a reality as this comes back in front of the Parks Board, and if there's any contemplation of season passes going forward, $450 is really, really low. Really low, to the point where I don't think we're being good stewards of the financial resources of the village.
We're not. I
Yeah.
mean, it's taxpayers subsidizing
Yeah.
an experience for a very limited amount of people. And if we had unlimited funds in our system, then that would be something that would be maybe worth just continuing out of tradition, but we don't. I mean, we have way, way more needs than we have resources. How many rounds of golf would you have to play if we, if the senior pass was $2,000, how many rounds would you have to play annually at the current discounted rate to hit that?
153.
And what percentage of people, in your opinion, just across the board, play over 150 rounds of golf a year? I can't imagine it. Yeah, I can't imagine it's very many. So even if we raise the rates, it would still make more sense to stick with the
20 pass.
the 20 pass,
Yep.
the 10 round, 20 round. And that would still be a comparable bargain compared to other courses. Especially if you played less than 153 rounds, which is 3 rounds a week.
Somebody like Jerry Arthur, who's gonna play 19 times, or just play in the senior men's league, they could save $70 this year.
Doing the
with a
20.
pass. So can, the ladies in penny putters, the senior men, they can all buy the 20-round pass and play for $11.70. That's cheaper than what they played for last year.
Are the passes only good for one season?
Yes.
Okay.
Jared, I know it's been mentioned several times that, we're a very affluent community, one of the wealthiest in the state, yet we have the cheapest golf, but at the same time, not everybody enjoys that same level of affluence. Is there a financial assistance mechanism in place for someone who, wants to play? Do we have something in place, a financial assistance program for someone who can demonstrate a financial need?
So we don't have any examples with the golf course. We do have examples from our own summer camp program. So in 2023, we did pilot a scholarship program that was sponsored by the Zionsville Parks Foundation. And we only had 2 applicants, of which only 1 qualified. And so the need just really wasn't there. From what we're seeing, residents are able to, the majority pay these fees. Now, there are groups on fixed income, and golf is certainly a form of recreation where they can get outside, move their body and also have community. So certainly, the round structure, if that is a cost savings to them, that is an opportunity to still enjoy this asset.
Are we looking for a motion to approve these rates as presented for 2025?
I think that is the intent of Zionsville National. The season won't begin until March, late March at the earliest. So if there was need for additional comment or research, we certainly could extend this a month, or the board could take action this evening.
March 15th.
Fingers
Great
crossed,
good
March
weather.
5th.
Absolutely. It was the 11th last year.
Do I have a motion to approve the rates as presented in the 2025 Zionsville Golf Course or Zionsville National Financial Plan?
So moved.
Do I have a second? I think we should do roll call vote. Vice President Chris Barksdale.
Aye.
Secretary Kimberly Lane.
Aye.
Chad Dilly.
I'm going to say nay. Do I give qualifying comments with that, or do we just need to move
You
on?
can, sure.
Okay. I would like to see a sustainment of season passes, but certainly at not 450. Certainly something that would be more market competitive is what I would see, just based off the feedback. Even some sort of Zionsville resident senior citizen is what I would be acceptable with. But that's the piece that I see. I think that the other rates are more than reasonable. The dollar increases are more than reasonable.
Matt Milborn.
Aye.
Doug Tischbein.
Yes.
Anna Shapal.
Aye.
And Ryan Cambridge, I also say aye. Motion passes with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 6 ayes, 1 nay. Next order of business.
We'll come back next spring, and we'll see if we have any excess capacity, and if there is, then
Yeah.
we'll.
And I think that you two need to be commended at the state of the golf course. It is significantly improving. And so, thank you for that.
Thanks, guys.
Next item on the agenda is the Mulberry Field Sports Field Reservation Agreement for spring of 2025.
For several years now, we have been inviting our organized sports back to Mulberry Fields after a lull beginning around 2013, where the park was just severely underutilized as all the teams kind of went other locations. So one of our priorities after COVID was to get those teams back, and we have succeeded in that, filling up our spring, summer, and fall schedules pretty regularly with these teams. This year, the Zionsville Little League has requested to utilize Field 4, which is closest to the road at Mulberry Fields, from April 21st until June 5th, utilizing our fee structure of $5 a field per 4-hour block. So for their season total, that would be $140. In years past, this agreement has been in the park board packet for your review, but we have condensed that and uploaded that onto our MyRec software. So now all of that is automated. So the materials in your packet are kind of cliff notes of the same agreements that have always been in place. So also in the packet was the certificates of additional insureds listing both the Parks Department and the Park Board. So for your consideration this evening would be to approve the agreement for the Zionsville Little League sports season at Mulberry Fields this spring.
Question, Jared. It's noted in the agreement that maintenance and utility expenses are shared between the renter and the park board. Do we have a sense of the level of intensity of maintenance that will incur because of these additional rentals?
So from conversations in previous years wanting to look at that fee model and have it reflect the true costs, this year we are keeping better records of what it takes to maintain these fields throughout the operation seasons, and that'll be prorated into next year's fee proposal. Okay. So taking what we've heard from the board, now that we've invited them back, let's make it more equitable for our operations as well as them.
Okay, so that's something that we would take into consideration for 2026.
Yes, but to the point of utilities, so after we turned the lights back on the sports field, we did see those energy bills and adjusted rates last year to reflect that. So that's why there's the steep contrast between a $5 rental and a $45 rental.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions or comments on the Little League field usage agreement? Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Same discussion, I assume, Jared, around rugby?
That's right. Rugby gets out here a little bit earlier, so pending your approval, they will be out on the 15th through June 6th. They utilize fields 1 through 3. They've also requested 4 practices or games with lights, so their total is $1,125. And, bringing back rugby just since 2020, originally they only had the high school team, and then they were able to offer a middle school team, and now they have a girls team as well. So it's been really enjoyable to watch that program grow just in recent years.
Great. Any questions or discussion desired on the rugby agreement? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the rugby agreement as presented?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Let's see, what's the next one? Special permit agreement. Sorry, I'm going up and down.
Ecological services.
No, one
Storage.
more. Yep. Special use permit for the rugby team. So last year was our first year to permit the rugby team to have a shipping container parked at Mulberry Fields for their season to store their equipment. This severely helped the volunteer dads that make up a lot of the coaching staff that had this equipment in their garage all spring. So we were happy to help them out. First year's agreement went well. The shipping container does carry the same insurance coverage as the overall policy, naming us. There are protections within the special use permit that outline expectations for removal and securing it when it's not in use. And in this time of year, there's plenty of space out at Mulberry for it to park and take up 4 to 5 parking spaces. So with your consideration, it would be to approve the special use permit and authorize rugby to have a storage container out there for the 2025 spring season.
Questions or discussion? If none, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
A second?
I second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Hey, Ryan, I do have a question, not specifically to that vote, but to the the bathroom concession stand, pieces like that, that we approved at Mulberry Fields. Is that fully approved through town council and everything like that?
Yes.
Okay. Once that's built, does that close the storage gap at Mulberry Fields?
No.
Okay.
We'll still have that gap because square footage is expensive. The only storage extra we have in that facility is a 10 by 10 room,
Okay.
which our program staff need to utilize.
Okay. I just don't,
Yep.
I get the practicality of it. I don't love storage units out. So,
Completely fair point.
thank you.
Maybe we could look at some way to wrap them in something
It's just a
interesting.
good thing we're not in HOA, right? I mean, that's it.
That's right, that's true.
Knock it ugly.
It would be a much shorter, more efficient discussion.
No.
All right. Item D, Ecological Services Agreement for Overly Warming Park and Zion Nature Sanctuary.
Yeah, so each year, we build into the budget contractual services for ecological services throughout our park system. These are the professionals that have helped us maintain the Mulberry open space grasslands and plantings, the Starkey Prairie, Elm Street Greens open space, and all of those restored places that are really pristine and have kept their integrity. Each year, as we continue to build out our natural resource division within maintenance, we have the opportunity to reduce that line. And it has gone down from approximately $50,000 to where now we're budgeting approximately $30,000 a year. So with that in mind, we have selected 2 proposals from Ecologic, one of which is for Overly Warming Park to maintain the invasive species across approximately 13.25 acres. This would not address the woody invasives that are out there. That is a years and years battle that we haven't begun just yet. But there are other non-woody invasives out there, some of which that do pose a risk to public safety and health. Poison hemlock, to name one. which has been seen and treated for years at the mountain bike trails. So this contract would continue that work as well as working on other species before they can take a foothold and become as expansive as the woodies have throughout Overly Warman Park. So restoration is an uphill climb, but every year we take a couple steps more towards that goal, and this would help us maintain a significant portion of Overly Warman Park. The contract for those services is $22,243.15. The other end of the spectrum, looking at the size of this contract, $2,852, is for Zion Nature Sanctuary. So again, through years and years of restorative work, we pretty much have a handle on the invasive population within Zion. And, you know, it's your work's never done because there's always threats from every single adjacent property or a bird that flies overhead or winds or everything else. But we're able to have a much more prescriptive quarterly check-in with that site where it's less labor intensive. So the consultant would focus around the outdoor classroom structure in the wetland area, targeting more of those specialized wetland species that we just are still gaining our capacities towards. So if they don't utilize their hours because it's checked this year, they'll actually walk out into the woods and help us with some of the other things that pop up throughout the year. But again, so for your consideration this evening would be two proposals from Ecologic, one for Overly Warman Park for $22,243.15, and the other for Zion Nature Sanctuary for $2,852.
I think if anybody's visited both of those sites, you could, as much as I love Overly Warman Park and are back there very frequently, it's a pretty distinct difference, and especially the understory between the two. So Overly Warman's a great park. It's only been in our system a couple years, so we're playing decades and decades of catch up. And I will say there is a ton of poison hemlock out there. There's a lot that's coming up already. So that's good that we're getting ahead of that. So with that, any other discussion or questions related to these two proposals?
What question do you think I'll ask Jared?
Are these funds already in the budget?
Yes, so out of the contractual services line within the general fund, the 2204 fund, we did anticipate 30,000, so we're underspending what we kind of earmarked this year.
By the way, Jared, I loved the synopsis that you sent.
Thank you. I'll continue that
Yes.
moving forward, if that's helpful.
Very helpful.
Very helpful.
With that, if there's no additional comments, do I have a motion to approve both agreements, one for Overly Warman and the second for Zion Nature Sanctuary as presented?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Oh,
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
This is getting quite competitive for the seconds here. This is good.
I like it. It's energetic.
This is good.
We're moving. We're moving through it. We did lose an audience. I
Yes.
noticed, but
I was surprised there's no public comment on the ecologic studies. No?
I think people underestimate the amount of work that is. And if you think about Overly Warman, it's a big lift, and it will continue to be every year, but it's also across from Starkey. So, you know, it only takes one bird flying from one side to the other to plant a tree or plant a plant or that we don't want over there. So hopefully they understand the value of that.
the birds or the public?
The birds. Next item, item E, enterprise vehicle lease.
Yes, so in 2019, the town entered into a agreement with Enterprise to help us manage our fleet. So no longer were we procuring vehicles and owning them outright. We moved more towards the leasing model. The advantage to this is that as a government entity, we can still purchase those vehicles at a discounted rate through government subsidies, and then we're selling them at the true market for a higher reflective value of what it is on the market. So buying low and selling high really helps us make this program actually benefit the town of Zionsville. And all departments utilize this, and what it does is, sure, we never own those assets, but we're also not owning the headaches that come with them. So in my synopsis that I provided was this breakdown of what the new leases and the existing leases are. So for your consideration this evening would be for 5 new vehicles for the Parks Department, 3 of which are Chevy Silverados, 1 Ford Explorer, and 1 F-550. The total for these new leases is $60,242.76. In conjunction with this, pending the approval of those new leases, we would also be trading in for vestigial vehicles in our operations. So a couple of these we do own outright, and one is a vehicle lease. So again, trading in those for the maximum equity. This is a conservative estimate on what that equity would be, and then reinvesting that to actually drop the monthly leases once those totals are figured out. So our high end is that $60,242.76 for 5 vehicles, but anticipating that to drop with the $44,000 in equity that would be filtered into that equation.
Don't worry, Chad, I got it. Are these funds in the budget currently?
Yes, so this also comes out of contractual services. This is one of our largest earmarks in that fund. It's our mowing contract, our vehicle leases, and ecological services is about the third highest, actually. So from there, our services get a lot cheaper.
And the 60,000 is minus the 44. It's not after, the 44 has not been minused first.
So 44 will be split up over the terms of the leases. So most of them are 3 or 5.
I gotcha. I see.
So that will reduce it. Some of the equations, it was like $100 and some per lease each month in savings.
Monthly, we're paying $4,000 more. We're paying $4,000 more a month for the new fleet compared to what we're paying currently.
No, this is significantly more than we're paying because some of the vehicles that we're trading in are owned outright, so there isn't a lease payment attached with them. So our lease every year will go up, but we'll continue to build that into the contractual services and make sure that's something we account for.
Are we going from 4 total vehicles to 5, or are we like netting an increase of 1 vehicle with this?
That is correct. So we have a couple of park maintenance techs that have to share a truck right now, which isn't conducive when we need to be in 2 places at once. So to have each park tech outfitted with the vehicle so they could patrol their zones and appropriately respond.
That was expected.
Yes, yes. So last year, we utilized funds from the director of maintenance position to fund those positions. So we went from 1 position to a net of 2. So this is catching up in the vehicle game with that.
When we think about stewardship, like DPW, would DPW be a kind of a more of a common comparison? Because the question, I'm going forward to maybe give you a fair way to answer that. I'm looking at 32,000 miles on a car with 2018, right? Do we really need to trade that one in? I can see a 2009 with 71,000 miles on it. Can you help me understand other departments within inside the village? Would they be trading in a 2018 with 32 miles on it?
And that's part of what makes the equity output so enticing for us is because our miles are low. So while our miles are low, we have used those vehicles, and something will break down the line. Enterprise actually has the formulas that tell us which vehicles should come up for trading in. So this list wasn't just based on need, it was based on their equations of how are we going to get our best return.
So basically what we're saying is we drive them around a lot, but not very far because it's all within the village.
Yeah, so each of those leases do have caps on the annual miles, but we never reach anywhere close to that. In fact, some of the ones we're trading in would still be under the annual miles of those leases, so.
In your opinion, based on your experience here, is the program of leasing and having the maintenance include, the fleet maintenance included is more efficient from a time and cost standpoint than buying a vehicle outright and then maintaining it over a maximum, whatever the maximum lifespan you can get out of it?
This is the first municipality I've been at where we lease as opposed to own, but I've also been in park systems where you turn the key and just hope it turns on for your day of work. So we are severely eliminating that scenario in our operations. And further,
it's totally true.
Did you say the whole town does this for all of their
Yes,
vehicles?
yep. So this is actually a town project or town contract. So when approved, it would be the mayor signing these specific leases. Further, Enterprise was able to contract with us, and they are a Sourcewell participant, so that is the lowest, best rates you can get as municipality for these services. So again, sorry, back to your maintenance question. You know, a timing belt or something unexpected faulting on these vehicles, we don't see that invoice as a part of the maintenance program. That's passed on to Enterprise and their system. So they've obviously, just like insurance, prorated what maintenance needs to be for these new vehicles, and they absorb those unknowns. So it makes accounting much easier for us. We understand what the cost of the lease are. We can keep our other vehicle supply lines low because we're not having to replace as much or
Sure.
anticipate those replacements.
Just struggling as I analyze this further, and I'm trying to look back here. I can't read up there. Yeah, so I'm trying to look back here by talking to Mike. Why would the maintenance program cost more on a new lease than the maintenance program on an older vehicle with 70,000 or 35,000 miles?
Everything costs more now.
I wonder if it's, obviously, those maintenance programs were attached to the 2019 lease.
Okay.
So if that's a fixed cost, then they're assuming that
It was a
risk.
fixed cost, it was cut, and there was a deal that was cut 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yep, for the 2019 vehicles specifically.
And in the instance, in this case, let's say you do have a timing belt or something go out and a vehicle's out of service, are you provided with a loaner vehicle during that time?
I would have to check into that. I'm not sure about that. If not, we do have an auto insurance policy as well, so I'd also have to check in with our representatives of that.
Jared, the justification for doing all of them at the same time, is it simply the equity position, or why not do the two oldest now and wait on the others?
And that's a great question, and it's interesting. You'll see within our equity lines, we are trading in one of our 2018 F-250s. Oh, just kidding. So why all now? The equation from Enterprise was these are the vehicles where you're going to get your best return this year. So again, if we use them for another year, they'll have more miles. They'll be 1 year older. That could have changed the output for what we would get next year using the same vehicle. So I don't anticipate those 2019s to be all four next year before us to look at new leases. But again, that formula is probably their trade secret.
I just think that Enterprise also probably wants to make money,
Yes.
right? They have a goal. And so how do we balance that, I guess, is my question.
I think the balance is the fact that they are a Sourcewell company, so sure, they still need to make a profit, but
Could you explain that? program a
yes,
little
so Sourcewell is a cooperative purchasing entity that bids out various items, and we'll actually talk about a Sourcewell item on our next agenda item. But so they bid it out to all the providers of whatever that service is, and then they collect those bids just like we would, and then they post them publicly, and any Sourcewell member can utilize that program to get those best rates. So it's already kind of been vetted as far as a public process, public bidding for that year, and then those entities sign a contract with Sourcewell that they'll honor those prices.
Just to add on a little bit to that, like Jared's exactly right, but it's a nationwide, they'll usually have a leading agency, so it could be somebody in Minnesota or Texas, but Indiana has, you can purchase off another governmental unit's contract as long as they comply with Indiana's requirements. So whenever something comes through, we make sure, they usually put out an RFP. It's really easy to comply with, and I've never seen one that doesn't comply with Indiana's guidelines, so it's a really good program to take advantage of to save us the hassle of issuing an RFP, and you can always get a nationwide purchase.
We use this and benefit from a different cooperative, but the same thing at the library too. It's a great program once you know about it and figure out how to work with it.
But to your point, I am open to conversations if we do want to remove one. I just think we would not trade in its equivalent if we wanted to go to that model for this year for comfort, but.
You go to the equity tab again.
Yes. So just to give a little context, that 2009 Ford Explorer with 70,000 miles, That is a vehicle we've owned outright, and that is something where the gear shift, we have a little trouble putting it into park or drive sometimes. So that has been out of commission for a season, and that's why we have our brand new trail hopper, which was a purchase from ARPA funds. So now that our program staff still have a vehicle they can utilize. So moving down, the 2013 Super Cab, that has been our watering truck for our natural resource division. Again, 60,000 miles on it. Just happy it gets us through the summer, but ultimately, if we could not have to worry about what that next expense might be for replacing it on that 10-year-old truck, we'd appreciate that. And then the 2018 Ford Explorer is mine. Happy to hold that back if we want to. Again, it was because it was proposed as something that we'll get our best return for trading in this year.
How long do they run the, what are they now that are cop cars? Police cars? Are they Explorers?
Chargers?
Chargers. How long does the ZPD run a car, mileage-wise?
So ZPD, I believe, are a little bit different because even though their miles are low, everybody knows that police cars idle, and that also has its own wear and tear. So they almost have their own market,
Yep.
aftermarket for police vehicles.
And they run them hard, too, right?
Oh, yes.
So ballpark, though, mileage, when they turn them over, what would you say?
We'd have to chat with Captain Kleiken or someone else
Because
over there.
where I would not feel good about being a steward of resources is if they don't turn those things over until it's 50, 60, 70,000 miles, and we're turning something over here that's 30,000 miles, that's where I wouldn't feel like we're making a good financial decision on that.
Well, but I think you'd have to balance that, right, with if they turn those over at 70,000, what are they getting back from an equity standpoint? Because if it's like $2,000
Yeah.
and we're trading them in much earlier, but we're getting $18,000, then we're, netting more, revenue of that or more equity. We're capturing more equity. You're still buying a vehicle either way.
And so I've sat in with conversations when Enterprise was here, when the police were here. One of the reasons they do hold on to their vehicles longer is because they have about a $100,000 investment in the equipment that goes in the car. So any chance they have to put that in a new vehicle, there might be components that don't transfer and such.
And I will say too, just having worked with a lot of other parks agencies, I think it's nice that our vehicles are cohesive and new and not puttering around. And, I think that does add to the sort of the legitimacy and the quality of life of Zionsville. I think that's nice. That's certainly not something that every park system enjoys. But also, as you look at these miles, I mean, the stuff that you all do with these vehicles, it is very much like a police car in the sense that they're city miles. They're not highway miles. I've seen these things on every portion of the property behind our house and pulling trailers and, so just something to keep in mind too, that if we were to own this vehicle and then try to sell it ourselves, it would be one, a fleet lease, like a commercial vehicle, which is going to ding the price pretty significantly, and two, it would have been used pretty hard by the time that we sell it. So
The decision to do this leasing program, I thought you said was the cities.
It is the town. Since 2019, this is the model we've moved towards. There are some vehicles that are still owned outright, obviously, and police and fire are the two hardest ones to fit into all these categories, just because of how they use their vehicles. But planning department, DPW, everybody's utilizing the enterprise program.
And are they all utilizing it the same way? They're letting Enterprise tell them like what we be doing at this moment?
Each department, as you can imagine, has vastly different operations. So again, within tonight's proposal is our first 550. So last year, we were able to afford the chipper. This year, we can afford the vehicle that can appropriately pull the chipper. So we won't have to ask DPW's team quite as often to borrow their equipment.
we put the chipper before the truck?
Needed the chipper.
Wow.
So it's after 8 o'clock.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
Jared, real fast, so 18,000, let's take a look at that, like, 2018 crew cab. It's $18,000 in equity, and it, just so you know, this may be just more like personal bias coming out. I guess I've never viewed a vehicle as an asset. I've always viewed a vehicle as just something to get from here to there, and I think they're terrible financial. It's not a financial investment. It depreciates so quickly that I struggle with the concept here that we're making a good financial play. So if you take the equity, 18,000, if you can go back to the other tab, let's say we keep that, and what would you not get? Another Silverado?
Yeah, I would, well,
Not get which one?
Yeah, that's the
If like we
equivalent,
said,
sorry.
we would support it, but other than that one, or other than that one in the Explorer, would it be the Silverado there? So I'm trying to understand kind of like a break-even piece if we were to keep that one. So if we keep that and you say we own it outright, right? The one
it's
on
a
the
lease.
equity,
Right?
Now.
the 18?
The 2018 is, yeah, one we own.
We own outright. Okay, so you're saying we get $18,000 back for that. We're getting ready to pick up 11.5 a year in annual payment. So by year 2, if we keep this for longer than 18 months, if that gets us longer than 18 months, in my simple mind, we're better financially than if we were to trade it in. That's how I'm looking at this financially.
You're taking on the risk of all the maintenance
Yeah.
in that time period too, which,
Yeah.
I mean, you never know.
For 32, I guess for me, for 32,000 miles,
Well, but they're not, just also keep in mind, they're not normal miles. It's
Yeah.
not normal, it's not normal use
like
of the
you and I.
vehicle. But that said, the maintenance question, that's the big unknown, right? Is if we own the vehicle outright, it's ours to deal with, it's ours to fix. What infrastructure do we have? Because, like I know like some cities, like Indy Parks or City of Indianapolis has massive vehicle fleet maintenance facilities, right? Mechanics, and they do all their own stuff. I assume we don't do that, right? We would be sending this to a mechanic to fix, or?
Even the vehicles we own are also in the maintenance program because it is just so beneficial to us. They just have different rates. So
Okay.
these outright owned vehicles, instead of being $56 a month, it might be $118 historically. So that could change every year.
So maybe I didn't understand. So the 2018 Explorer still has a maintenance program on it where if something were to happen, it would be covered under that and not an out-of-pocket expense.
Correct. I would have to look if everything is covered. I think as the vehicle ages, the list of things covered change.
Which just lessens or negates some of that risk of those out-of-pocket expenses.
Absolutely.
The 2018 is your vehicle that you drive?
One of the two, yes.
Oh, sorry, the Explorer.
Yes, yep.
Does that have, I mean, 2018 is not old, but cars change like computers. Does that have current safety features like backup cameras and?
I have no complaints with the 2018. Again, this is proposed before you all because we anticipated some change in our leasing because we needed new trucks. And also, this was a vehicle that Enterprise suggested to get our maximum return based on their formulas. So happy to revise either side of this equation as appropriate. The ultimate goals is to get one more crew truck and then also fund our first 550. So outside of that, if we hold on to something, if that makes the board more comfortable, we can do that.
I support trading in the 09 and the 13. It seems like those seem to need to be updated. I'm struggling with the 18 Explorer and the 18 25 or 250. And I appreciate you just going there right from the start and saying, "Hey, I'm willing to give mine up if that makes you more
Well,
if that
and-
makes you more comfortable."
And definitely for me,
Yeah.
with your problem of doing both, the Ford 250, it is, they're not the same car, but it's 18,000 miles less, and it's only $3,000 more that we're getting. That seems like a real struggle for me, compared with the others three even.
So if we, just for the sake, and I don't know that all the other board members believe this, there may be dissenting opinion up here, but if we said we affirm the 09 and the 13, what would you do? What would you take off your other list?
I would take off one of the Silverados as well as the Explorer.
Okay. That gets you still what you need to take the chipper around?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, but it's not just the chipper, it's the chipper plus one more crew truck.
Yep.
Right?
Yes.
It still gets you
Yes.
an incremental one.
So we were trading 4 and leasing 5. So as long as we're plus 1 at the end of these conversations, you're not going to hear anything from me.
Yeah, where my head's at is austerity measures, right? There's a lot going on in the state legislature that could impact property taxes and different pieces like that. And I just came in, and not to make this like a whole long-winded discussion, but I'm just approaching 25 with more austerity measures. I see what's going on in small businesses and things like that. It just has me worried about the state of the economy overall. And so from an austerity piece, I would say support you on the 09 and the 13 and hold back on the 18. So I make a motion to approve the 09 and the 13.
Second.
So the motion is to approve the 09 and 13. We have a second. We want to do a roll call vote. Chris Barksdale, Vice President.
Aye.
Oh, sorry, I have to say your name.
I was waiting.
Kimberly Lane.
Oh, sorry, and just to clarify that motion, so you're taking those two off to trade in, but then you're also taking off two to lease as well.
So
Good call, Jeremy.
Yeah, we probably better, well, hold on, let's step back.
perhaps the motion should be to approve the leasing of two 2025 Chevy Silverados and one 2025 Ford F-550, and trade in one 2009 Ford Explorer and one 2013 Ford F-250.
I've decided, I have another question.
Yes.
Is this our only opportunity for this to happen this year? Or, I guess, if,
Like, what happens if we punt it a month and then they give us numbers?
or in 6 months, if that, something were, like those trucks weren't good, or something was going on, they were failing, or, I don't know, something changed. Do we have another opportunity to look at what our return is on those, and it could come up again, or is this just an annual type decision?
Currently, it's annually. We kind of chat with Enterprise before budget prep, but certainly if we start having issues and want to get it off, they're here all year. So we're under contract with them.
They're willing to sell at any time, is what you're saying.
The other question I have, just to make sure I understand, we've made a proposal for these two and taking two off. Afterwards, if somebody else wanted to do a proposal differently to add another one and take another one off, that's also possible, correct?
Yeah, again, I could come to the board with another proposal for leases next month.
Well, I mean in 10 minutes, in 2 minutes.
Oh, I'm satisfied with this. Our needs are still being met.
Okay. I was just in case other board members were thinking, I'm okay with these two, but I'd also like one more or two more if that was, the vote might be different, but.
I think you would just vote that motion down and then have another motion.
Okay.
You know, that would include those other vehicles.
Make your motion again.
So I make a
Lead
motion.
in the microphone. Thank you.
Those top three.
Make a motion to lease two 2005 Chevy Silverados and one 2025 Ford F-550, and trade in the 2009 Ford Explorer and 2013 Ford F-250.
I second.
Man, you're just ready to do that. Okay. All right, roll call vote. Vice President Chris Barksdale.
Aye.
Secretary Kimberly Lane.
Aye.
Matt Milborn.
Aye.
Chad Daly.
Aye.
Doug Tischbein.
Aye.
Anna Shepal.
Aye.
And Ryan Cambridge, I say aye as well. Motion passes. Sorry, Jared, no new car.
That's all right.
So I commend Jared, though, for coming up and saying of what lamb to sacrifice mine. Great, thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate
well,
that.
I appreciate that, and to your point, and I think it's a good balance of discussion on the board, in terms of needing to invest in our park system and have a high-quality park system, while also making sure we're making financial choices that ensure we continue to have a park system. I think that this is probably discussion for another day at another time, where it's not 8:45, but, you know, if that bill passes that changes our property taxes, we're
We're having
gonna be
harder
selling our
conversations than
trucks
what
and the
truck are we
seats
gonna
that
have?
we're sitting in,
Yeah.
and these iPads and everything else,
Yeah.
just to keep the ship afloat. So I'm hoping that doesn't pass, and I would encourage all of you to think very carefully about the benefit that would provide, and/or the costs of that, maybe to the collective as opposed to the individual. So I'll get off my soapbox. Moving on now to another presumably large purchase of equipment, Case backhoe.
That is correct. So in recent years, we have truly evolved our capacities within the parks maintenance division, so much so that, as I mentioned earlier, we were able to recruit multiple positions last year that were park maintenance techs, but we also have a step above that now, which is our skill techs. These are the ones that are pouring those pads for our memorial benches. They're doing excavation work, and they're becoming masters of their trades. It's significantly helping us keep down our contractual services and other professional services from outside parties. So one one of those things that would significantly help reduce our rental cost as well as reduce our reliance on DPW borrowing a piece of their mission critical equipment would be to purchase our own backhoe. Not only does that benefit our operations, but as I just mentioned, DPW has one backhoe. Should theirs go down, being a mission critical piece of equipment, could borrow the Parks Department. So building some resilience for the entire town as well. So again, utilizing a Sourcewell contract, we have customized the needs for a backhoe for our operations. And again, collaborating with DPW, there were a few features that they wanted in addition to what the model we were going for. So they have offered to pay that differential. So if you'll look within our budget, 2204, 500, 445 had equipment budgeted at 150,000. So I was pretty close. The park share of the total contract of $151,467.46. Our contribution to that backhoe, which we would own, would be $146,887.96, and DPW would utilize their funding for that that final $4,579.50. And again, those bells and whistles they've requested are just going to help them be on the road more safely. I think maybe one of them was climate control inside the cab, things like that. So with your consideration, it would be to approve the contract to purchase a case backhoe with the financial split I just mentioned between Parks and DPW.
And if I'm reading the invoice or the estimate properly, the Sourcewell discount for this piece of machinery is just shy of $54,000.
Yes.
So 25-ish, 30% discount over retail.
So a significant program to be in, and it's free to us, so we're not leaving.
Jared, real quick, cost savings per year. How much do you think this will save us per year from using a contractor or time saved or pieces like that, if you were to project?
So our rentals in the past have been minimal. I would say it's approximately $4,000 a year, perhaps, maybe around $2,000. But it's more the borrowing of the DPW resource. And should that go down while we're borrowing it, then they're out of luck. And that's a mission critical piece of equipment because they're excavating nearly every day. They're using that equipment much differently. So it's kind of like we've just asked too many favors because we've grown our capacity so much that we need to have our own equipment. And it benefits the resilience of both departments.
You got it budgeted for, right? Like you articulated?
Yes.
Yep. No further questions, Your Honor.
I have a question on, what kind of warranties come with that?
It would be the base manufacturer warranty, and then beyond that, we would obviously insure the piece of equipment for hopeful
Can
replacement.
you buy extended?
I didn't budget out extended. Yeah.
Good.
But that's something you could add later if we decided we wanted to. You could purchase a policy later for,
Sure.
I don't know.
I can look into that if you'd like. Again, we take exceptional care of our assets. You know, they're not missing oil change, hydraulic change. You know, we're treating these with care so that we can get the most life out of them, especially when they're our assets versus a leased asset. Not that we're harder on the leased assets.
Does DPW, do they maintain their current backhoe?
Yes, they do.
They do.
So we all utilize, you know, similar merchants when it's something beyond our capabilities, but many times, you know, the hood's popped and they're in the engine trying to figure out what's going on.
And your staff are trained to operate this backhoe?
Yes.
Or not all of them, presumably, or maybe all of them, but you have staff that can.
Yes, so years of borrowing from DPW, we've learned their best practices, we've implemented our own, and we're proficient now.
Oh, I'm sorry, I felt like I interrupted you.
No, you're good. How long does a piece of equipment like this last? How long will we be able to benefit from this as a community?
You know, with proper care, we could get a decade out of this or more. It's, you know, the golf course, we had equipment out there that we leased out. We have a 1986, I believe, John Deere tractor that's still in operation. It's barely in operation, but it's still in operation. So just kind of a testament to, again, you know, our municipality, we're not using them maybe quite as recklessly as we might on our own property from time to time, but
Or every single day like you would as a contractor would.
Yep.
Right. This is the last question I'll ask. Do you have a sense of what we would spend annually on large equipment rental like this within the Parks Department, or did we always borrow DPWs?
The majority of it was borrowing. That's why I mentioned our rentals are probably anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000 a year.
Okay.
So significantly less, but you all have been privy to the amount of memorial benches we're doing or bike pads and all of that. Instead of being a contractor, we're now doing in-house. So maybe the cost savings is in other aspects across the board.
If there's no further questions, do I have a motion to approve the purchase of a case backhoe for $151,467.46?
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item of business. Sorry, I got to get back to my list here. Paving, striping, Big Four Rail Trail, Town Hall, Center Line striping.
Yes, so in my tenure, I've received multiple concerns from some residents about how the curves around the town hall with the Big Four are kind of blind. So cyclists going around aren't sure what's around the corner. And we explored signing it appropriately, and there are signs there today, but it really was when I saw two kids smack into each other because they were in, the European side of the rail trail, that I realized that we did need to take one more step, and truly the psychology of putting a center line there is going to push people to their appropriate lanes. We already have the signage saying stay in lane, and for $600, we can have a professional come in, stripe this for us, and speaking of team capacities, our crews can easily stripe a straight line, but just the curvature of this, we want it to look good, obviously, for the community. But then upkeep, we can buy a can of paint and replace it over the years. So it's really just getting that initial middle line down. So working with Roads City Paving, they gave us a great deal of $600 for this project. They could put that in their spring queue, and we could have a center line in specifically these two sections. I'm not trying to stripe the whole rail trail.
And this is just a liquid applied paint, it's not
Yes.
like a thermoplastic.
Correct. So again, when I mentioned touch-up, we'll have the capacity to touch it up.
Questions or discussion?
Do you know how many
Yeah.
feet that is, total foot?
6, hold on.
I believe it was in the full packet materials. I don't have that number right
Okay,
in front of me.
I'll look for it.
But I think it was around 600 feet or
600 feet?
Yeah, I mean, $1 a foot
$1 a
for,
foot.
That sounds like a
for
good
liquid
deal.
applied
Feet.
paint, so pretty,
Yeah.
Jared, I feel like I asked this.
I think that's exactly where you need to do it.
Yeah.
agreed.
So I'm not going to ask you if it's in the budget on this one. I'm going to surprise you on this one. Your signature authority, though, walk me through why you felt the need to bring the $600.
So that is
proposal.
something John Oberlander and I are going to work with
Okay.
and have before you at the March meeting. We don't want to fill the agenda with these small
Yeah.
marginal items. The issue we're having is there's no formal policy that we've been able to find, nor is there statutes or other codes that we've been able to find that define a purchasing policy. There's just, when it's this threshold, you use this procurement tool. So
Yeah.
the guidance I was given when I was oriented was to stay below $5,000 without authority. Further, we are looking into, can the superintendent sign on behalf of the board, or does it need to come from the park board president to enter into agreement? So our job over the next month is to actually formalize a policy that we can all agree on, and then we can expedite some of these meetings a little quicker.
I think that'd be great, because my thought with this is I look at a $600 invoice on it. How many millions of dollars is your budget annually?
Just a little over 2, yeah.
Right. So if you can't approve a $600 invoice and remain on budget, then we got a bigger problem, right? And so I think if we can come to terms of what that right threshold is, and then you're just held accountable for hitting it every year, I think that that's ideal state for us as a board.
It's helpful. I can share with you what we do at the library, what those thresholds are, and take it or leave it.
Well, we as a consultant run up against those frequently with a lot of other communities, so.
And it is unique to the Parks Department, Park Board, because DPW, for example, they don't have these same thresholds. It's the mayor signing those contracts, so it's a little bit more expedited.
We're an actual purchasing authority of the
Yes,
town, right?
so
Yeah.
That's what we need to navigate together and have before you all next month.
Okay. That said, do I have a motion to approve the project to stripe?
So move.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. I say aye also. The motion passes. On to old business. 2025-01 Impact Fee Utilization Plan, 2025 update. Where are we with that, Jared?
So this was introduced at the January meeting, and again, the methodology is to become the best stewards we can with our available resources, forecasting out how we want to utilize our available reserves, and matching that with the will of the community and the priorities of the park system. So what I did with this resolution is pair the projects proposed in the 5-year master plan, the ones that were applicable for utilization of impact fees. I placed a spending strategy at the bottom of the resolution. And what I'm requesting from the board is just consideration on whether to approve that methodology with the expectation that this would be revisited annually. So impact fees, the levels of service are going to change each year as we add amenities or our population changes as well. That might make some things more eligible. But with the current plans we have in place, I think utilization and just forecasting how we're going to utilize them is going to prepare future park boards. And then, working together, if there are some extremely large capital items that we want to go towards, whether that would have been, the golf course clubhouse or a community center, we can have that conversation, build the next impact fee plan, and maybe the one after that to reach that goal, and then understand that that's what we're saving those for. But these two plans, they weren't necessarily wrote to support that. So really, it's just attempting to utilize these fees that we've collected over the years to benefit our park system.
And doing so in the context of a 5-year master plan that has been adopted and approved by council, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. And every item on here was part of that 5-year plan that was adopted and approved by council?
That is also correct. So pulling from the listed projects, just pulling eligible items and then listing them in a 5-year strategy below. Or actually, we go beyond 5 years. I've also mentioned some long-term goals with those funds, understanding that we might not necessarily have the local funds to make the whole project worthwhile. So,
right. This is just simply stating that this is a priority use of impact fees that we have.
Based on the 5-year master plan, yes.
Correct. Which
I like it. Yeah, I like it. I think it provides transparency. I also think whenever we get approached by a developer in the future, we need to tie back to this to say if we're going to forgive impact fees, does it tie with our long-term vision? I think that that's something, may have been a gap with that last one that we approved. So I think it's important. I'm going to Monday morning quarterback our 5-year plan, right? And I know there's a lot of time and effort that went into it, but fresh eyes, fresh perspectives on this. We have 0 baseball fields and 0 softball fields, and it's something the impact fees or the impact fee eligible amenities calls out significantly, and there's nothing on the 5-year horizon about that. There's some gaps here that we're going to have to manage as a parks board. Soccer fields are a gap that if we think of a big long-term capital play, there's some things here that pop out in red that are significant gaps for us in the community. I know you mentioned community center. That's another one that pops out here too. So I think as we're balancing this, directionally agree, and there's probably some things within our 5-year plan that actually the impact fee analysis says that we should contemplate in the future as well.
Okay. Any other? I can see it. Okay. Any other discussion, desired, or questions related to the impact fee utilization plan? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the 2025-01 Impact Fee Utilization Plan 2025 update as presented?
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I'd like to roll call vote this one. Chris Barksdale, Vice President.
Aye.
Kimberly Lane, Secretary.
Aye.
Matt Milborn. Chad Dilly.
Aye.
Doug Tischbein.
Aye.
Anna Sheppel.
Aye.
And Ryan Cambridge, I say aye also. Next, Big Four temporary construction easement updated.
So this is a initiative that was started mid 2024 for members that weren't on the board last year. A neighbor resident of the Big Four approached the board asking if they could place a pedestrian bridge on park property so that they could traverse from their property immediately to the Big Four rail trail. The board heard that request and treated it much like a public project requiring stamped engineered drawings, proper permitting, and proper liability coverages before they would agree to those terms. So the neighboring resident has satisfied all of those terms. John Oberlander has reviewed the new agreement. So this not only allows a temporary construction easement for him to place his pedestrian bridge, but it also puts the precedent of maintenance and upkeep of that also tied to the property. So at any point, if it becomes derelict or a safety concern, we give him a notice. 30 days later, we're going to tear it out for him. So,
And then bill him for its removal.
yes, the expenses are tied to that property. So this, one last thing, this would be a public bridge. It really doesn't lead to anywhere right now, except for his fence and gate, but it technically is a public amenity at that point.
And this was discussed for those that weren't on the board last year for over several meetings.
yes.
And I feel like we got to a point where we had the assurances we needed that it would be built to the same quality that we would build it, and that we have the long-term guarantees we need to make sure that it's not a burden to the taxpayers to
And I think-
maintain it, keep
I
it
think it would-
safe.
And if we don't approve it, I think it would be a pretty bad look to tell him, here's all the money you're gonna spend for us to approve this, and then do it, and then us not.
Yeah.
So with that, and given the history of that item, do I have a motion to approve the temporary construction easement license and maintenance agreement for the Beechwood Bridge Connector?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Say aye as well. Any nay, same sign. Motion passes. Other board-related items? Anybody have anything they want to chat about right before 9 o'clock?
The only thing I would mention is I went through claims, Jared, is when I think about kind of what Doug started off with the kudos for the team, and when I go through the claims, like, I think previously I saw maybe like you bought donuts for the team or something like that. I would just say, like, operating within your budget, like little things like that can go a long ways for team morale. And so I feel like you should have our support as long as you're operating within that budget to take care of the team in unexpected fashions that show appreciation. So
I sincerely appreciate that. I believe that claim benefited some program attendees, so my staff didn't get any of that.
well, what I'm saying is, like, I would expect to maybe see more of that in the claims. Just stay within your budget, stay within your allocation, but take care of your team is what I would say. They're working hard.
I appreciate that.
And
Yep.
100%, but there are very specific parameters that we can do that with. I know that I come up against that at the library. So I figure out what those are, and kudos to your team. You guys are doing great. We have different rules.
We will continue to pass that along.
Yes.
I just had a very quick comment. January was a fabulous month for sledding. And Jared, we had the chance to talk about this. I got my first chance to go sledding at Mulberry Field since moving here because we haven't had.
Lived, you're still walking?
Well, that's just it. I barely lived. So I witnessed people climbing up the hill, and the snow was so icy that they were falling. And I watched one girl fall and bust her mouth. And I was thinking, how fabulous would it be to have a set of stairs here? And so I brought that up to you, and we talked about there could be summer use for it, for people working out and training and things like that. And so I don't know where that fits in this discussion, but if that's something as a park board we can figure out how to prioritize or find the money for, It was such a great month for sledding, and, you know, a lot of families just couldn't stay because if you had little kids, you couldn't get up the hill. So just throwing that out there.
Busted lips build resilience.
That's true.
Yeah, we got to keep it.
So if we have any donor listening that wants to throw us a
Yes.
check, is basically what I'm
Yes.
saying. We could put it towards some stairs.
We do have a naming rights policy, so.
There you go.
One stair
Maybe
at
we
a
could
time.
get like an
We still have the
orthodontist
park
to
correction.
do it, like, you know, a dentist or somebody.
Paved trails.
Yeah, so the only constructed route up to the top of the hill is an accessible route. So it's those long inclines. So imagine, you know, we did our best for clearing ice and everything else, but there's opportunities for a lot of slipping on
Yeah,
that.
could be improved upon, I'm sure.
Yep.
Put a chairlift in,
Now we're talking.
or a T-bar or something.
Austerity, austerity.
Oddly, it was in the budget. I don't know. Okay, all right. Any other items?
Were claims approved?
Not yet.
Okay.
We're moving to claims now.
My
from
bad.
Board-related items. Yes. Okay. Everybody had a chance to review the claims. Any questions or concerns beyond the kudos comments? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the claims as submitted?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Claims are approved. One additional item, updated park correction register.
So, sorry. There's a new report with the software we're utilizing through our financial department. So it calculates all of the changes that were made amongst lines throughout the year and presents it as a claims register at the beginning of the following. So some examples of this are ADP, which is our provider for payroll and things like that. They gave us an estimate for what FICA would be for the year, but that number was actually different. So that was changed within this register. Other examples are our frontline staff input their transactions into our finance system. I review those, and at times I change those to they better reflect where they should be coming out of. Those are on these registers as well. So some things that could be done, there's an opportunity for staff training so that some of those errors can be minimized and they wouldn't show up, you know, on next year's register. But ultimately, there's going to be some level of change, human error, or unknown things that are going to create some claims on this register. So it's no new transactions per se as far as a financial amount. It's just cleaning up some lines and approving those.
Someone who's done this at the library, and it's great pain to try to recreate what was happening 6, 8, 10 months ago, to figure out what the thought process was and where to do things. Kudos on the transparency. I know the town has struggled for several years, and I think this is great. I wish my software would let us do a report like that. It's a little terrifying right now, but it eventually.
I appreciate that.
If there aren't any other questions, do I have a motion to approve the registry correction?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. I say aye as well. Motion carries. Last important item, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Do I have a
Second.
second? Oh, it's close tie. Okay. So move, hold on. Very good. Meeting adjourned.
Wait.
Everybody's got to sign a whole bunch of stuff.
Yes, nobody leave without signing.